Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg reported today on his attempt to define the so-called Trump doctrine of foreign policy. He writes, the best distillation of the Trump doctrine I heard, though, came from a senior White House official with direct access to the president and his thinking. I was talking to this person several weeks ago when I said, by way of introduction, that I thought it might perhaps be too early to discern a definitive Trump doctrine. No, the official said, there's definitely a Trump doctrine. What is it, I asked? Here's the answer I received. The Trump doctrine is, we're America, expletive. That's the Trump doctrine. For more, I'm joined by the Hardball Roundtable. Jonathan Swan is national political reporter for Axios. Ginger Gibson is political correspondent for Reuters. And Eli Stokols is White House correspondent for the LA Times and an MSNBC political analyst. All of you, thank you. Put that together, Jonathan. I'm not sure that relates. That language we just heard about is basically us, the heck with you. And I mean that. That's basically what it says in worse language. How does that fit with this almost date that we're watching with Kim Jong-un, where he wants to be friends with this guy?
Well, I think very clearly you saw that doctrine play out over the weekend, which is Donald Trump effectively seeing the world as a group of countries that owe America money. And he looks at North Korea as an enemy, but one that he is uniquely placed, Donald J. Trump, as, you know, in his mind, the greatest negotiator and deal maker in history.
Is it an honorable country in his eyes? An honorable man, honorable people.
Trump doesn't see the world like that. You know that, Chris. He doesn't see the world.
He said this is honorable. The guy's about me with his honorable tonight.
Because he uses adjectives doesn't mean that he sees the world in that way. And you know, Chris, from having observed Trump for a long time, he doesn't sort of give countries a mental score based on their human rights record and various other issues. He sees America as a country that needs to defend itself and stand up for itself and get the best deal possible. And again, you look at the transatlantic relationships. These are long historical relationships that Donald Trump is reducing to things like a dispute over dairy tariffs. So it is a completely different mindset than we've ever seen from a U.S. president.
Ginger, I want you to talk about that, but I want you to get into this question of why so many people seem to want to get out of the White House. It's another story tonight just perking up. Why do people who have this privileged position of working in the White House, the most treasured sort of event space in America, if you will, the New York Times reporting that as Trump attempts his diplomatic gambit abroad, back home he left behind a West Wing in the White House where burned-out aides are eyeing the exits as the mood in the White House is one of numbness and resignation that the president is growing only more emboldened to act on instinct alone. The report adds that last week, Chief of Staff John Kelly told visiting senators that the White House was, quote, a miserable place to work, Ginger. That's from a guy who's over there representing our country, and back home there's something wrong in the White House.
We know that Donald Trump thinks that managing by chaos is a good tactic. And I don't know about you, but working in a place with chaos can become pretty miserable pretty quick. The other thing that's important to remember is that people get into public service in the White House for two reasons. One, to serve their country, but second, and sometimes at the same time, to cash out when they're done. And it's becoming increasingly difficult to get that cash out. If the White House is not functioning, if you're not producing, if your resume isn't getting a boost from having White House under Donald J. Trump as the last line, leaving sooner rather than later can help mitigate that problem.
You really think that many people in the White House are there just to get their resume punched?
Absolutely not. I think people go in for public service, but you can't live on public service alone for the rest of your life. You have to get a job somewhere else afterwards. And when you've got a president, we're talking about fighting with our allies, it makes it harder to get that next job with someone that's going to have to go be diplomatic with Congress or with those allies in the future.
Eli, are you hearing that? What are you hearing about this Times story that they're really restive in the White House? They're very unhappy.
Yeah, you're seeing that, and you're seeing positions, you're seeing people leave and then positions not be filled. I think the through line with all of this story, all these stories that we're talking about here, the fact that Donald Trump can't bring new people into the White House, that Donald Trump can't get along with longstanding U.S. allies, The through line here is that Donald Trump, at the end of the day, believes in nothing more than the primacy of Donald Trump. That's why he's excited by these negotiations, a possibility to sit down with Kim. That's why he doesn't care about a values-based alliance that stretches back decades. These things do not matter to a person who really thinks that he's smarter than everybody else, doesn't need the advice of his top aides. He tweeted just an hour or two ago that the only thing that will count today is when he sits down with Kim. He specifically referenced the pre-meetings of advisors and aides and said those are great, but the only thing that will matter is when I sit down with Kim. This is a person who doesn't listen to his chief of staff. He didn't convene a single National Security Council meeting before going over there, doesn't have an advisor who's an expert on chemical weapons. He's doing this all on his own instinct. He's saying as much, and that makes him a very difficult person to deal with, whether you're a longstanding U.S. ally or a chief of staff or another staffer in the White House.
John, this is a real put down to people that are serving him. A real put down. These people aren't helping me here. I don't need to have briefing books. I don't need any help. These people are a bunch of losers around here. I'm the only winner. That's an amazing statement for leading a team. How do you do that and expect that team to perform for you?
Well, you saw it recently. It's not just sort of low-level staffers. I mean, they sent a team of 5 of his senior-most officials in the administration to China to negotiate trade. It was the Treasury Secretary, Stephen Mnuchin, the Economic Advisor, Larry Kudlow, and Wilbur Ross, the Commerce Secretary. They come back, and Trump says, we've had no meetings. There have been no meetings. Just wait until I do the deal. Well, that was news to the group that was over there in, very intense discussion. So, again, this comes back to Donald Trump's theory of international relations, which is a series of man-to-man contests around the world. He's always seen himself as the only figure. I mean, he literally said at the Republican convention in 2016, I alone can fix it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.